and now begin thinking about my actual lecture. Um, okay, so why do societies like having money? Like, what does a society benefit from having money? Well, money has perhaps three purposes. First, is that it is a medium of exchange. Okay, medium, that means like something like a tool that gets used for something or a material that gets used for something. A medium of exchange. We use it to exchange goods and services. Second is that it is a measure of value. We use money to express how valuable stuff is. Yeah, if I tell you that my car is worth $1,000, that gives you like an idea automatically of what it's worth. Or if I tell you that my house is worth $50,000, again, you know what that's worth. Okay, so it's like a common language or unit of measurement for value. Just as like we measure height in feet and inches, we measure values in dollars and cents. Okay, if like you're like thinking of me as if I am stupid for saying these things because it's so obvious to you. But again, we want a number system or a system to measure how valuable things are, and we need some units for that. So we use dollars. And the third thing is we use money as a store of wealth, right? Because, I mean, this wad of cash right here, okay? The money that Will, right? Yeah, did not take from me. I'll give this to some other classes. Like, or I can just hang on to it. I can stick it under my bed with the rest of my money. Please do not break into my house and go into my mattress. Okay, it's not really where I keep my money. Okay, but you know, this stuff is still going to be useful in a while. And if I do some work and you know, like exchange my services to other people, but I don't want to immediately receive goods and services like back at that time, I can just hold on to my cash. Okay, so societies benefit from having money to serve these three purposes. And, you know, prior to money, how do you imagine people got by? Like, how did economies function? People would, what's the word? Trade, barter goods and services. You know, I went out hunting this morning and I caught a rabbit, and you know, you were out, I don't know, what do? You make pottery, and so I decided that I'm going to trade my rabbit for a pot that you made, and that's how our society might function. Okay, maybe that can work in a simple economy, but it's hard to have a big, large, complex economy that operates through barter, okay? Because, like me, I sell some services, teaching services, I educate people, and you know, economics is all about people exchanging goods and services. And I assume, please don't be offended if this assumption is wrong, but that most of you, your parents are the ones purchasing my services, right? Um, and okay, the thing is, might be hard to exchange goods and services. Will, you nodded your head when I said your parents were paying for this. What do your parents do, if you don't mind my asking?
My dad's a lawyer.
Your dad's a lawyer. What kind of law? Criminal defense. You know what? Fortunately, I do not need his services. Okay, I in a barter economy, the way things would work is be like, okay, I'll teach your son, but then next week I need someone to defend me in my murder case, or whatever, and we'd be like, yeah, great, we can exchange our services. But turns out you're out of luck. I don't need a criminal defense attorney right now. So we've got a problem, right? What do your parents have to exchange to me that I want and will accept like in exchange for educating you, or someone else? I mean, Rachel, may I say what your mom does? It's a service that I do not need. Your mom teaches economics, right? Okay, I'm sorry, but I do not need her services. Okay? She's probably a wonderful teacher, but I've already been educated in economics. So, what does she have to exchange to me? Okay? Do you think any of your parents have something that I want? Make something that I want? Avery's like, maybe. Okay, he's also a lawyer. Does he do like divorce, family law? Civil rights cases. Okay. Huh. No one's infringed on my civil rights lately. Okay. I don't know. There is a problem which we call the we call this the problem of the double coincidence of wants. Okay? Things that we want. And when bartering works, when the things I want coincide, like match up with the things that you have to offer. Okay, that's the double coincidence of wants. In my last class, I had a student who said that her parents were organic farmers. And that would actually work for me. If they asked me to educate their daughter, in exchange they'd give me some organic vegetables, I'd be cool with that. Okay? And there would be an opportunity for barter. There's a double coincidence of wants in that case where I want the food, they want an education, and we could agree to just exchange the two things directly. But in other cases, in general, it's unlikely that I have exactly what you want and you have exactly what I want. Now, maybe there could be some three-way agreements, because I do, like, what I would really like right now is someone to babysit my kids over the summer. And I know that this person, the only problem is they were just arrested for their 5th DUI offense, and they're going to go to jail unless they can get a really good criminal defense attorney. So, what? Why do I want this person to babysit my kids? That's actually a good question. Okay, this is a hypothetical situation. So, yeah. So she can drive my kids around and I don't have to. Okay, sorry. Um, 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 so I have this person who would babysit my kids, needs a good criminal defense attorney. Okay. Now we could set up an arrangement where I teach Will. Will's dad defends this babysitter, and the babysitter takes care of my kids. A three-way agreement. Okay, that works. Okay, but it gets tricky, right? Then we need to find 3 people who's like we've got a little extra wiggle room with 3 people. but we still have to set up these complex arrangements. Maybe we can't find 3 people, then we need 4 people, and the problem gets more and more difficult. So instead of trying to barter only with people where there is this double coincidence of wants, we establish a universal item that will be used as a medium of exchange, okay, that will get exchanged for goods and services. Okay, so this is, by the way, I think an important concept. Like double coincidence of wants refers to 2 people each happening to have what the other one wants, okay? And generally it's a problem that, especially in a sophisticated economy, we're unlikely to have exactly what the other person wants. Okay, it's also more convenient when we use money and we can establish prices. Is defending one person against a DUI really the same amount of work or like value as teaching one student, or like babysitting my kids for the summer? Like, or should I really say that no, actually, I want 2 people, 2 of my friends, to be defended against DUIs, and then that's worth teaching Will for. Okay, it's kind of convenient that with money we can establish what all these exchanges are, and we don't need to work out exactly, like teaching one course is equal to defending 2 criminals, or it's equivalent to 150 hours of babysitting, or it's equivalent to 700 eggs, or we don't have to work out all those individual prices. We just have a universal measure of value. Okay. Then the third thing on this list, money is used as a store of wealth. Okay. Like maybe I don't really need goods and services right now this semester. I would rather have some food later on in life, right? Like after I retire. I don't want to have to work then. So I want to have something valuable that during my old age I can exchange for goods and services. And that's the nice thing about, like, this green paper kind of stores its value pretty well. Yeah? So, okay. Now, different things have been used as money over time. And generally, there are 2 types of money. Okay. There are commodity currencies or commodity money. By the way, just to be clear, as far as I'm concerned today, currency and money are synonymous. The 2 words mean the same thing. Okay, types of money. There's commodity currency, and there's fiat currency. Commodity currency is something that could be used. Okay, it's useful. Okay. I might not be exchanging my goods and services for this commodity because I actually want to consume it, but it could be consumed. And when the pandemic started last January, or when we started to see signs in January 2020 that bad things were going to happen, my wife was like, we need to prepare and buy public health supplies. And I, as the economist, I was like, well, if the world economy collapses, we're going to need to have useful stuff that we can trade for goods and services. I was like, in the post-apocalyptic world, the new currencies will be, and I said, toilet paper, Girl Scout cookies, and chewing tobacco. Okay, I was kind of 1 out of 3 correct in that. Yeah, right. Toilet paper would have been valuable. I mean, you can imagine things getting really bad, and people just forget about that green paper. I'd rather have white Charmin on a roll. Okay, and we start using that as currency, and not even just simply barter, exchanging it because you need toilet paper, but it could be like, hey, I need some food, I'll give you a case of toilet paper, and you're like, I don't need toilet paper, but I know I can exchange that for something later on down the road. Okay, that's how a commodity currency works. One of the old examples of a commodity currency is the classical Romans would use salt. Roman soldiers would get paid with salt, which, not just because they wanted to consume a big bag of salt, but rather because salt was something that was universally valued, not for consumption necessarily, though it could be consumed, but also just everyone respected it as something that could be traded for goods and services. It was a kind of money. Yeah, in fact, the word salary contains the Latin word, or is based on the Latin word for salt, sal, right? The word salary literally comes from salt. And, this is from the fact that, again, in classical Rome, soldiers would be paid with salt. Salt was accepted as a unit of essentially currency. You buy things using salt. The person who sold you stuff gets the salt, and then they trade that salt to someone else down the road. Okay. In other cases, over time, tobacco and alcohol have been used in some cases. Even chocolate has been used as currency. I mean, we could decide that Hershey's bars will become currency in the post-apocalyptic world, and we trade things for Hershey bars. Maybe not because we want to consume them, but because um, but because they are effectively currency, and the value is backed by the fact that they could be consumed. Actually, chocolate was used in post-World War II Europe as an informal currency. Okay? Economies of Germany and France and Italy had collapsed. Germany, for example, had a government transition. The former currency, the Reichsmark, was no longer accepted. The Nazi money was no longer accepted. And people didn't really have a new currency yet. So chocolate bars, right? Exchange things for chocolate bars and other common items that I'll talk about criteria for currency in a minute. Okay. But then there's also been one commodity that has been traded for thousands of years. Gold. Okay. It's a commodity. It kind of has value on its own. Okay? So coins have been made from gold, silver, copper, other precious metals. Okay? Now this is all in contrast to the other type of currency, fiat currency, which is inherently useless. It has no actual value, and it is used as money only because the government says so. Okay, that's all, right? That green piece of paper, well, what can it actually be used for? I mean, maybe if you're really desperate, it counts as a square of toilet paper, but that's about it, right? Um, I mean, it really has no value on its own, but the government says it's worth something, so we all use it. Uh, it is like really kind of an odd thing. Actually, what the government says is that it can always be used to pay debts. Okay, if you owe the government money, like taxes, um, uh, the government promises it will accept those green pieces of paper to pay off your debt to the government. On top of that, if someone loans you money, it must be an option for you to repay using money, or if someone loans you whatever, it must be an option for you to repay your debt using green pieces of paper. That's what the phrase about this money is legal tender for all debts, public and private, means. That by law, any debt can be repaid using green pieces of paper. Okay. If we do an exchange right here, right now, I can, like, we can exchange goods for goods directly, but if there's going to be any, like, time delay, I receive goods from you now, and later I give you something, the government law says that you must be willing to accept green paper at that later date. It's sort of funny that that's actually how the government gives this green piece of paper value, okay? But for the most part, we just accept that it has value because, I mean, it's really weird. We accept fiat currency because we believe that it will be accepted, by the person who has the goods we want. Okay, Will, you actually described this pretty well when you explained why you wanted the green piece of paper with the number 20 on it, because you were going to use it to buy a sandwich, I think you said. Okay, now, I corrected you a little bit. You believe you can buy a sandwich with it. There's no guarantee that it's going to buy a sandwich, but to the best of your knowledge, it will. Okay, so that matches almost exactly with how I would describe why we accept fiat currency. But here's the interesting thing, maybe. The person who has the goods we want, okay, that person will accept the money because, not because that green piece of paper has value to them, but they accept that green piece of paper as payment because they believe it will be accepted by the person who has the goods they want. Right? Again, that person who's selling the sandwiches, for the sake of the example, Will's going to buy a sandwich from Avery, okay? And Avery accepts the money because she wants to buy a house from Rachel. Rachel accepts the money because she wants to buy a horse from, let's see, behind Danny. Tell me your name. Remind me of your name. Olivia. What, Olivia? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Rachel wants to buy something from Olivia, a horse. Olivia wants to buy cookies from Danny. Okay, and the reason that this green piece of paper works is like Will wants the piece of paper because he believes he can get goods from Avery. Avery will accept it because she can exchange it for goods from Rachel. Rachel will accept the green piece of paper because she can believe she can use it to get goods from Olivia. Olivia accepts it because she believes she can get goods from Danny, and so forth, right? It's this like cycle that keeps repeating, or this whole chain. Like the person who has the goods they want, that person will accept because of the same thing, right? Now, a challenge is, and this scares me, this keeps me up late at night. If anyone stops believing in the money, everything unravels. Okay? If Olivia starts thinking, maybe Danny isn't going to accept paper from me, like when I want cookies from him, maybe Danny isn't going to take this piece of paper. Then she wouldn't want to accept a piece of paper from Rachel. And when Rachel realizes that Olivia's not going to accept a piece of paper from her, Rachel won't accept a piece of paper from Avery. And then Avery, she knows that she's not going to be able to use the paper to exchange the paper for what she wants, so she wouldn't accept it from Will. Everything like unravels once someone stops believing that this that this green piece of paper will be accepted by the next person in this chain. Okay, so the value of fiat currency is really from this system of mutual beliefs. Okay, system of mutual beliefs. And, okay, we all believe the same thing. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between system of mutual beliefs and mass delusion. They're almost the same concept, right? We're all simultaneously believing the same thing, that a green piece of paper has value. And because we all simultaneously subscribe to that same belief, it does have value. Okay? But again, money is fragile because if anyone really loses belief in that green piece of paper, then the value can disappear very quickly. Okay. There is a phenomenon called hyperinflation, which is when money rapidly loses value. Okay. And this has happened to different countries' currencies at different times. Um, so a notable period of hyperinflation happened in Germany during the Germany during the 1930s. At home, I have a German um, 10 trillion, not dollar. I have a German 10 trillion mark bill. Okay, is that, these were called Reichsmarks. Okay, I really do. Okay, I bought it on eBay for about $50. Okay, it's basically just a collectible at this point. That $10 trillion, sorry, not $10 trillion, 10 trillion Reichsmarks. My handwriting is not very neat. Marks, the old German currency. Okay, it was never worth even $50. Um, it's just the money of Germany had become virtually worthless. And, you know, if you knew, and then, of course, the problem with this is if you know that your money is quickly losing value and that all prices will be twice as high tomorrow as they are today, then your reaction is charge more for your goods and services today because you'll need them like more money tomorrow, which drives up prices even faster. I mean, again, if you're anticipating the money will lose value, you start asking more for your goods and services, which means that prices escalate. It's what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that money will lose value, it will. Okay, losing confidence in the money causes the value to disappear. Okay, so Germany during the 1930s, Argentina in the 1980s. Now, Argentina had an interesting solution to its problem, which was they created a new unit of currency. I believe it's the SOL, SOL, which the government promised that it would exchange one SOL for one US dollar. Okay? If you went down to the government bank and said, hey, here is my Argentinian SOL that you, the government of Argentina, printed, give me my dollar bill, they would do it. Okay? Well, here is a way of like backing the value of the currency. It almost makes it into it almost makes the Argentinian currency into a commodity currency that is linked to something that has value on its own. If you think that the US dollar has value on its own. Okay. It's but then the US currency doesn't really have value on its own. It's really not a commodity. Okay. Um, anyhow, it's a way of making the money seem as if instead of just trading a worthless piece of paper or coin, You are instead trading something that has an actual value, aside from the government just saying, yeah, it has value. Okay, and currently, Venezuela in South America, I'll say in the 20 teens, the currency called the Bolivar began losing value during an economic crisis when the government had a sudden shortage of government revenue, and the government solution was print money to bail ourselves out. Previously, the Venezuelan government was getting much of its revenue not from taxes, but because the government owned the country's oil and would sell the oil to fund government programs. When prices of oil came down, the government found itself with a severe shortage of money, and so it just printed money. Okay? And the government can do that. As a matter of fact, unnecessary vocabulary word, I'll just write this down. It's called seigniorage. Is printing money. Sorry. The government paying for things with money it prints. Okay. Now, again, you do not need to know this word. I'm not going to ask you about this. But it's an idea that you can understand. Why doesn't, can't the government just print money to pay for the goods and services that it needs? And the answer is yes. And it does. All countries' governments do this with fiat currency. The problem for Venezuela was the government seemed to be doing this faster than people were comfortable with and putting out more money than, more cash than people were familiar with. And people started to maybe doubt the currency. Well, if the government keeps printing billions of bolivars, that currency, Bolivar, billions of bolivars each year, won't that make the ones that I'm holding on to less valuable? Well, I don't want to hold on to a piece of paper that is going to become less valuable. So one of two things will happen. Either I will stop accepting pieces of paper for the goods and services I provide, okay? And that's like breaking this chain of beliefs. Or I will, because I think money's becoming worthless because the government's printing so much of it, I will demand more for my goods and services to make up for the fact that money is becoming less valuable, to make up for the fact that prices are rising. Well, when I make that demand that I expect to be paid more for my goods and services, because of rising prices, I am contributing to rising prices. And so this problem of rising prices just spirals and spirals. Okay? And the idea of things spiraling out of control, that's hyperinflation. Okay? When that happens with money, we have hyperinflation. Okay, so Brazil's problem came from the government printing too much money. As a matter of fact, that was really the problem in all these cases. Germany during the 30s was sort of a weird situation. Do you know why Germany during the 30s was printing so much money? Okay, Germany owed a lot of money to a bunch of other countries. Germany had debts um, uh, Germany had debts to other countries. Okay, and so, I mean, to like an oversimplification of what happened was Germany just printed money to cover its debts to other countries. Why did Germany have debts to other countries? Any guesses where these debts came from? Rachel? Weren't they from war? Yeah, Germany had a few years earlier started a war with a bunch of other countries, right? These were debts that from World War I. Okay, as part of the terms of surrender, the treaty. Oh, blanking on the name of it. Treaty of, was it Versailles? Okay, Versailles specified that Germany had to repay the Allied powers for some of the costs of war. Okay, what was Germany's solution? Well, they tried to repay it. Didn't work, or like it was difficult for the economy to repay these debts, so then they came up with a clever idea of, hey, we can just print money to cover our debts. And, okay, well, then people catch on to the fact that the government is just creating money, and the government can and will create as much money as it wants, and so why should we trust the government's like little pieces of paper? And then these like this German currency, which was called the mark or Reichsmark, imperial mark, just spiraled, the value spiraled out of control. Okay, hyperinflation. Hyperinflation happens essentially when there is a break in hyperinflation happens when there is a breakdown in this system of mutual beliefs. Okay, people stop. If some people stop believing that the currency will have value, suddenly it loses value for everyone else too. Okay? So I talked about this chain of economic transactions. If Olivia doubts that Danny will accept a green piece of paper for the goods that she wants, then that green piece of paper doesn't matter to anyone earlier in the economic chain. As a matter of fact, Danny, when I offered him a choice between a chocolate bar, green piece of paper that said 20, or two green pieces of paper that said 1, if Danny knows that he's not going to be able to trade it for a sandwich, then he wouldn't even accept the green piece of paper that said 20. He would have either taken 2 pieces of 1 or a chocolate bar. Okay, anyhow, I expect you'll probably get like what I'm saying here. Money has value because we believe it has value. And that's or fiat money has value because we believe it has value. Now that's different from, say, using salt as a medium of exchange, salt or another commodity money as a medium of exchange, because even if the financial belief in it disappears, we still have something with some intrinsic value. We can use that salt to season our food. Okay, now, lots of things can be used for currencies. Okay, what characteristics should a currency or a money have? Um, okay, again, there are many candidates for money. We could use the green pieces of paper. There's some reasons why they work well, maybe some reasons why they don't work well. We could decide that we're going to use chocolate bars as our money, or, I suggested that last January to my wife that it would be toilet paper, Girl Scout cookies, or chewing tobacco. Okay, I was mostly joking, but there was a little bit of thought into my suggestion. Like, why would those be good candidates for money? Okay, there may be four so important characteristics that money should have. One is that it should be fungible. Okay, completely interchangeable. Or completely identical. Okay, like there's no difference between $1 bill and another. If I were to go fish around in my wallet, let's see, do I have another 20? Yeah, I do. Okay, and I were to say, Danny, would you trade me this 20 for your 20? Danny wouldn't, or not Danny, I apologize. Uh, Will wouldn't be like, I'm not sure which one is the nicer one. No, no, no. They all have exactly identical value. So this is one criterion for something to be a good money. They are all equivalent to each other. Okay? Other things that have been used as money, have included, like shells, seashells, in some societies. But potentially a problem is we could argue about whether two shells are exactly the same thing. This one is a little bit bigger. This one is a little bit nicer. Okay, those differences create problems. But okay, the things you're familiar with as money, dollars and coins, you do completely recognize, like, it sort of, it probably seems silly that I'm even bringing up that they are all completely interchangeable. Okay? That's part of what makes, like, that's part of a good money. Okay? All of them are interchangeable. Second, durable. It doesn't go away. So I talked about like using salt as a form of money. Salt doesn't go bad over time. You can just store your salt and it's going to stay there. It's essentially never going to change. It's going to be pretty permanent. Now, as long as you store it carefully, there is a problem, right? Water is not the friend of salt. Okay? So it's durable in some regards, but not completely. Meat would probably be a terrible form of currency because it is not durable. It spoils quickly. Okay, green pieces of paper, these things, are they fairly durable? Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could stick this in a safe place in my house. It's not going to rot for a long time. Now, it can catch on fire. If I store it in a place with a lot of water, it might rot, but they're pretty durable. Okay, coins too, they last. They can hold their value over time. Not perfect though. You drop a coin, it will eventually corrode, go away. Okay, but good currencies are durable. Now, I have friends who've grown up or in all different parts of the world. I have a friend who grew up in Soviet-era Russia, where one of the informal currencies was alcohol, specifically vodka. Okay, vodka is good because it's durable. It might evaporate, but it doesn't go bad. Okay, wine. See, just think about the difference between two forms of alcohol. Wine, not used as currency. Alcohol, I'm sorry, vodka, used as currency. What makes the difference? Maybe one thing is durability. Wine eventually spoils, okay, especially if it's not stored well. Um, uh, Another is fungibility. Vodka is an identical product, more or less, just pure ethanol that's been distilled from grain or potatoes. It's more or less always the same thing. Bottles of wine, a wine from one brand is not the same as wine from one vineyard in 1 year is not equivalent to a bottle from a different vineyard or a different year. They're not all identical, so it makes it an overly complicated system of money. Okay, but again, vodka works. Durable. Number 3. Oh, I'm losing track of things. Durable. Another is recognizable. Oh, okay. That no one has any doubt what it is. Okay, and again, this green piece of paper, if you are more than 2 years old, you know exactly what this is and what it can be used for. So there's no doubt everyone recognizes what this is, can identify it, and everyone agrees that it has value. The fourth one, very important, scarcity. You know, gravel, like little pebbles, would never make good currency because you can find them anywhere. You can just walk outside and scoop up a handful of money, okay, off the ground. It wouldn't work as currency. So there needs to be a limited supply. Okay. So any good that satisfies these conditions would be perhaps a candidate for use as money. So when I'm thinking about, like a year ago or January 2020, what happens if society breaks down? What are we going to use as a currency? Well, I start thinking of commodities and, things that are fungible, interchangeable. Well, rolls of toilet paper, Girl Scout cookies, cans of chewing tobacco, at least within the same brand, everyone, they can all be counted. This roll of toilet paper is equivalent to that roll, equivalent to that roll. This box of Thin Mint cookies, that box of Thin Mint cookies, they're all the same. Okay, so like they can be used as just an identical measure, and we're not going to establish that some have more value than others. Okay, durable. Okay, toilet paper stores well. Girl Scout cookies store well. Chewing tobacco stores well. Recognizable. I mean, could you imagine a society where all we do is trade, primitive society, but we trade Girl Scout cookies for everything? Maybe, right? I pay my plumber in Girl Scout cookies, and everyone recognizes that Thin Mints are equivalent to money. Does that work? Am I the only one who pictures that? Anyhow, recognizable, we all know what it is, and scarce. Okay, see, toilet paper would be scarce in the post-apocalyptic world, I figured, and everyone would need it. But it's also durable and it stores well. Okay. Now, let me talk about the commodity that has been used as currency more than any other commodity. Okay, gold. Okay, as a matter of fact, people continue to buy gold as, I suppose, sort of, they would describe it, an investment or a way of storing their money in case things go wrong. What makes gold a good money? Well, I've listed some characteristics here, or like characteristics of good money. It turns out that gold is pretty special among all elements or chemicals that you find in nature. And it might be that gold has been used as money because of its unique, like, chemical properties. Okay, so first, being fungible, being interchangeable, that would be the case if we just establish any chemical or any element as our unit of currency. Okay? One chunk of gold, another chunk of gold is the same substance. No one really thinks of one particular lump of gold as having more value than others. Okay? All that really matters is how much gold there is. But again, no one gets particular about the actual pieces. Oh, it's hard to explain like what it means to be fungible. This is different from diamonds. Diamonds are not fungible. Each diamond is unique. And just being a 1 carat diamond is, well, one carat diamond is not identical to a different 1 carat diamond. Okay? They have different colors, impurities, clarities. Those things differ. So diamonds are not a good candidate for currency because you can't just count up the number of diamonds assuming that they are all the same. But gold, yes, it works. Okay. Um, uh, Durable. This is actually an interesting thing. Do y'all realize that gold is one of the least reactive, like least reactive, in other words, hardest to destroy chemicals that there are, right? Just pure gold. It doesn't rust, it doesn't tarnish, it doesn't corrode, it doesn't mix with anything, right? So, like salt. Salt is not particularly durable because if you mix it with water, it washes away. Or the limitation of green pieces of paper, again, I'll flash my wad of bills right here. Limitations of that are this can rot over time, or it can catch fire and burn up, but not gold. It doesn't rust, corrode, rot, burn. It doesn't combine with anything. It is it is the least reactive element of everything on the periodical chart. But the other ones that are like low reactivity include platinum, and silver is like fairly durable, but not nearly as durable as gold or platinum. Okay, there's kind of a trend here. Okay, this is actually interesting. Okay, but then another requirement for a good currency is recognizable. Okay. Can you recognize a piece of gold? If I were to show you something, could you maybe determine whether it is in fact gold? Tell me the things that you know about gold. It is unique in what, Will? Its color is an obvious one, right? It is a yellow metal. Okay? Now, there are a couple of other yellow metals. Brass can be yellow. Brass didn't exist like really long times ago. It's created through a mixture of copper and nickel and some other stuff, but it turns out it has a yellow appearance too. But still, it's hard to mistake brass for gold when it's just made into a coin. Do you know why? There's something else about gold that makes it very recognizable. Maybe one or two other things, in fact. Yeah. Super heavy. Yes. Gold is like unusually or maybe surprisingly heavy. If you pick up a gold coin the size of, say, a quarter, you will be surprised that it weighs about twice as much as a quarter. Okay? Like it just stands out as this weighs more than other metals. So, yes, gold is dense and unusually dense. And so you can tell the difference between picking up a chunk of brass and a chunk of gold. The gold will weigh twice as much. Okay? And there is a third recognizable property. Gold tends to be pretty soft. It's easy to bend or dent. So maybe if you watch old movies of people testing a coin for whether it's gold, have you seen the person like bite into a coin to see if it leaves a dent in the coin? Gold will do that. The gold coin, you can like bite into it and it'll leave a tooth impression. So at any rate, gold is recognizable because it has unique properties that other metals don't. Okay, I find this fascinating that like, oh yeah, gold is durable. It is recognizable. And then the last thing that makes for a good money, limited supply. Okay, good. So I think there's a reason why different societies in different parts of the world, different times, or well, around the world and across many times have used gold as money. It has some wonderful properties that make it useful as a medium of exchange and also as a store of value, right? That gold is permanent. It's not going away. You know that it will have value in the future. It'll still be around in the future. Okay, now, why do I bring this up? Well, maybe it's useful for thinking about should you invest or put your money, invest is, I'll put some quoting marks around that. Invest in some new currency. Do we think that some new currency will take off? Currency will work? Well, of course, I have something in mind when I raise these questions. Do you know what I'm thinking about? Yeah, well, cryptocurrencies, of course. Okay. Will, do you know anything about cryptos? Little bit. Okay. If I say to hold to the moon, you know what that means? Okay, you know about cryptos. Okay. What? I misspelled crypto, didn't I? I apologize. I just really misspelled that. Oh. Cryptocurrencies. Okay. These are sort of the proposed new electronic currencies. Okay, new electronic currencies like, big one is Bitcoin. Okay, another is Ethereum. Okay, my favorite is called Doge, but okay, no, that's mostly a joke. Okay, sorry, the crypto nerds will laugh at that, but clearly no one here is good. Okay, so these are new electronic currencies, and a simple, extremely simple explanation is that there are computers that keep spreadsheets, maybe, with accounts of how, like, where each unit of currency is located, what account it belongs to. And so there have been created a bunch of bitcoins, and they are kind of numbered, and and a bunch of computers simultaneously update their databases every time that a bitcoin is moved from one account to another, or a different account the bitcoin is assigned to a different account. But it's essentially a bunch of computers keep track of these accounts of how the money is exchanged. And there is no physical currency. It's just a record in a computer that each person has a handful of these, or well, each person, or each account, essentially, um, uh, contains, and then it counts up the number of bitcoins that belong to each account. Okay, so Will, you know about cryptos. Have you ever thought of, or have you purchased any? You have. Okay. So do you think they're going to the moon? Okay. Um, you hope so. Okay. Now, people have tried to convince you of all the good things about cryptos and why you should buy them. And let's think about whether it really is a good deal. This is your lucky day. You won $20 and you get a discussion of cryptocurrencies. Okay, if crypto is going to take off, or Bitcoin is going to take off, or any new currency is going to take off, one thing that needs to be true is it's fungible, that they're all equivalent to each other. Each unit is identical to the other units. Now, this is by design. Like one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. They are all identical to each other. They are all interchangeable. So yeah, the system is set up that way. Okay, good. Okay. Durability is an interesting thing. For money to be, or for something to be successful as a money, it needs to be durable, right? Something like salt. Salt is good because it's not going to rot or change composition over time, but the limitation is water makes salt dissolve. Okay, pieces of paper, they can burn, they can rot. So there are limitations to their durability. Now, cryptocurrencies. Okay, talk about a couple of pros, okay, advantages they have or will. Will, can you tell me some ways that cryptos are durable? Okay. Stored in computers. And how many computers are they stored in? Yeah. Millions, right, of computers are all keeping track of these accounts simultaneously. Okay. So is it durable? I mean, it's not going to burn. It's not going to rot. It's not going to dissolve and wash away. Um, as long as these computers are up and running, or as long as a few of them are still up and running, there will still be a record of it. Okay, it's pretty darn durable in that regard. What else? Okay. There are some challenges, though, with durability. Okay. Cons. There's one problem, which is essentially accessing your account. Okay. Each cryptocurrency is connected to essentially an account number, and then is connected to an account number. You know, the challenge with accounts is, what if you lose your password? Yeah, has anyone ever forgotten your account password for anything? Yes. Okay. There's not really a system for resetting this. Now, actually, um, there's no account to, or there's no password to your Bitcoin account. Rather, it's connected to an account number or a key. As long as someone has that key, they can transfer your Bitcoins. So, Will, what do you do with your key, right? Or do you, or okay, so you purchased through Robinhood, so Robinhood owns your Bitcoins for you instead of you having access. Okay, so yeah, okay, that's slightly different. Um, that's like the bank holding your cash for you instead of you holding your cash. But anyhow, accessing your account can be a problem, and there is a famous case of someone who has billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, and the code he needs to access that he stored on a memory stick, a password protected memory stick. He forgot his password. He has 10 attempts to enter the wrong password, and then his memory stick locks up forever. He has tried his password 9 times, and without success. And so he has one more time he can possibly try to log in to get his account number, and then it's gone forever. Okay, but at this point, he does not have access to essentially billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin because he can't remember his password. Okay, I mean, this is a challenge. The other issue with durability is what if it isn't accepted? Will owns a Bitcoin, and he paid a lot of money for that. Is the value guaranteed to stick around? No, not at all, right? I mean, this is the big problem, is what if it doesn't catch on? And there have been hundreds or thousands of proposed cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin was the first. Or the first, yeah, let me say, it probably was the first cryptocurrency. And so it stuck around. But which of these competing Bitcoins will survive? I'm sorry, which of these competing cryptocurrencies will survive in the long run? We don't know. Okay, and probably only one of them will stick around in the long run, and the others will lose their value. So, when it comes to durability, here are a couple of like downsides. So, next, I brought up recognizable as a characteristic. Good currency will be recognized, everyone knows what it is, and everyone accepts it. This is a problem, I think. If you just walked into a common store or gas station and said, hey, I'm going to pay you with some Bitcoin, the person at the counter might say, I've heard of that, but I don't really know what it is. And if you tell me you're transferring something, how do I know you really are? I don't really know how this works or what a Bitcoin is. Okay, and that's a challenge. Okay, people don't recognize what it is or know how to use it. This is something that we're going to have to get over if Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency is going to become a future currency. Okay, now the last thing, scarcity, limited supply. Will, do you want to talk about this? Because the crypto nerds are big on this, right? Have you heard of? Okay, the way the system was designed, there is a fixed maximum Bitcoin Bitcoin that can ever exist. Okay, so infinite Bitcoins cannot be created. They are by design limited, which is, for a good reason. If we knew that computers could keep producing more and more like hypothetical coins out in cyberspace, what would be the value of your particular coin? Bitcoin makes a guarantee, or the Bitcoin system makes a guarantee that there will be a limit that cannot be exceeded. Okay, so the system is designed to promise or guarantee scarcity. Okay, so now again, I've talked about characteristics of good money for several reasons. One is I just find it interesting. This is an economics class. It's the only place where we get to be philosophical about why does society have money? Of course, an important one is this idea of overcoming the problem of double coincidence of wants. But also so you all can think about if things change in the future, what is likely to be successful? I imagine trying to go back 4,000 years in time and explaining to people that in my day, we exchanged green pieces of paper as for goods and services. And they'd look at me like I was crazy. Like, what good is the green piece of paper? Like, why didn't you want that delicious chocolate bar instead of a green piece of paper? And I'd be like, well, because someone else thinks it's useful. Well, why do they want it? Well, because they think someone else will take it from them. It would be hard to describe to someone who has not lived through fiat currency or who has not experienced fiat currency why it is successful or why it can succeed. And so I also wonder what currency will be like in 100 years. And fiat currency really hasn't been around for more than, the US hasn't used fiat currency for more than 50 years. Prior to that, currency was essentially backed by gold or silver. So even fiat currency is kind of new. I mean, at best, it goes back maybe 150 years, or at most, it goes back 150 years in Western countries. So again, I have to wonder what the future of currencies will be like. The system that we use right now is likely to change. Okay, so how are we for all that stuff? Okay, I spent more time talking about cryptocurrencies and currencies and so forth than I intended. Um, Again, I find it interesting and it's useful to think about. However, I have only 10 minutes to do the rest of my lecture. So you're going to start hearing some things quickly. Okay. Switching topics to growth in GDP. Sorry for rushing into this. Growth in GDP. Okay. Countries want their economies to grow. And so if we want to think about what policies will be successful for growing a country's GDP, we need to think about what things contribute to a country's productivity. And productivity of a country, like GDP per capita, depends primarily on four things. One is physical capital per person. Okay, capital refers to, or physical capital, physical capital is almost redundant unless someone says otherwise. Capital means physical equipment that is used but not used up during production. Okay, so imagine that what I am trying to produce is a meal at home tonight. And among the physical things that go into producing that meal include a bunch of vegetables, some meat, some grains, and then other things that I use in production include a knife, a food processor, and an oven. Okay, some of those things get used up and are not capital. They are inputs into production. Those are the foods, right? The vegetables and the meat. Those are inputs into production. Capital is the equipment that does not get used up. Okay, it's durable. It's used over and over and over. It's the knife. It's the food processor. It's the oven. So physical capital includes everything that businesses own. Everything that businesses own or the country owns that contributes to productivity but does not get used up. So it includes factories, machinery, buildings, computers, roads, projectors, etc., etc. Equipment. Okay, and physical capital, like per person. Now, of course, it depends on how much capital each worker has access to. Now, just having $1,000. I hope this is clear. $1,000 of capital is different when you have 2 workers or 5 workers. It's the usefulness is different. Okay, human capital. Okay, these are characteristics of workers. Actually, I should say human capital per person. Okay, these are characteristics of workers that make them more productive. Okay, and again, capital really refers to equipment or machinery. We use this phrase human capital to say that actually things like skills we have, that people have, are a form of, like, do the same kinds of things as capital. They contribute to production, but they don't get used up. So human capital includes primarily education, skills, training. If I were to explain what a class, what my job is to other labor economists, I would say that I create human capital. Okay, what you all are doing is human capital investment. You're investing in acquiring new skills and more information that will make you all more productive workers. Okay, but also more broadly, it can include things like health. Right? Contributes to how productive workers are. Okay, next on the list is natural resources per person. Okay, so I guess the inputs into production always begin with some natural resource. If you trace back any material that we are using in production, it originated with something that came out of nature, right? This computer right here, it's made up of plastic and metals and all kinds of other things that if you trace all of those things far enough back, the plastic comes from petroleum underground, the metals were in the earth, etc., etc. The food that goes into cooking my dinner, like that came originally from land and sunshine and water and fertilizer that were all originally chemicals in nature. Okay. Oh, by the way, I forgot to give in my example of cooking human capital. When I'm cooking, that is that is like the speed that of chopping vegetables is my human capital. My skill at chopping vegetables or stirring or those other things that are my own personal skills that I have acquired over time, that my personal cooking skills. Okay, natural resources. Again, the food, the ingredients, even the capital that goes into production originated with some type of natural resource. Then the final thing on the list of like what contributes to productivity is um, okay, knowledge. Knowledge. Technology. Okay. Now, this is the one that I'm not going to add on per person because knowledge is essentially a public good. Yeah. Once one person thinks of a new, better way to grow a crop, then everyone else can use that same technique. It's not rival in that like one person takes it away from another. Or when it comes to cooking, kind of knowledge or technology, think of a recipe. I can have a recipe for a really good dinner, and you can copy that and also use it. It doesn't crowd me out. It's not rival in consumption. And it's not excludable. Once the recipe exists, it can get shared, and there's no way to prevent other people from using the recipe. Okay, so I have to be done now. It is 4:10. It has been a fun class.